users with up-to-date news about things that would be happening in British culture and news in general. So it's a free newspaper. You don't have to pay anything for it. And their main source of revenue is through advertising. And they have very few minimal online resources. So I'm going to hand it off to Gerald, who will talk about the problem.
The problem. Mr. Miller, the current owner of Union Jack, has a vision to grow the company in order to both include an online presence and a physical presence, while at the same time including the younger demographic, not currently a concentration for the magazine in their strategy. They want to integrate technology as well, specifically social media, as Mr. Miller believes that it is the way to the future and that it's only a matter of time before the physical paper becomes completely obsolete. In order to make, lastly, he also wants to make a decision to include a younger demographic or not, because this might cannibalize their current audience and make it even less.
Now for the objectives, we realize that Mr. Miller wants to develop a long-term business model, of course, because Union Jack is primarily a North American model for a British newspaper. And plus, we also want to integrate an online media. So further on to our presentation, we will discuss about how we integrate the online media as well. And also, in order to maximize readership, we decided a couple of strategies along with that too. So, moving on.
So these are the criteria that we established for our strategies. We said that readership was the most important criteria in evaluating our strategies. And then in line we have profitability, so how much money will be generated through these strategies, how much time it will take to implement them, and how sustainable each strategy will be. And finally, how much will they cost?
Strategies. The first strategy we came up with was actually acquiring an already established Canadian company, also specializing in British content. They're called British Canadian. We went with the strategy, or talked about the strategy, because they already have an audience, and we want to take that audience so that we can get their readership right away. This does trade off money financially, but we do hope that with the readers, we can get money from advertisers and start from there. Second one is to update the content strategy. With this, we mean to emphasize on older readers and the travelers. The first part, the older readers, are the senior citizens, which mainly read from the papers currently. What we want to do is add a column that teaches them how to first operate a computer, get familiar, get comfortable, and then slowly transition them to go to the website. So it is a slow process, but this way we won't lose the existing readership when we do transition to online. That's the first part. The second part is the travelers. We noticed that Union Jack has a lot of readers currently who are interested in traveling to England or expecting travelers from England to Canada. What we want to do is have a travel column or a travel section that focuses on the different tourist spots in England, maybe get some plugs from food places there, entertainment. So those places would pay advertising fees to us in order to promote their services. The third part is a social media contest, which emphasizes on Foursquare. This would take advantage of Foursquare, a location-based application for Twitter. And what this does is actually readers of Union Jack would have the ability to go to different places, British-themed places in the local Vancouver area. For example, fish and chips restaurants or antique shops. And Union Jack would actually hold a contest to see how many spots each reader can go to. And they accumulate points based on the place they go. And at the end of the year, there can be a contest saying the person who has the most number of points can travel to England for free. And so what this addresses is the concern of Mr. Miller to integrate an online presence. It also has a revenue aspect to it because each place that would be part of the contest, each shop would be paying in order for them to be advertised in the contest. And lastly, this could also raise the number of audiences because of like a hype aspect to it, a fun aspect to it, which hopefully gains more readers for Union Jack.
So now we go to our analysis of our strategies. And what we did with this matrix was that we have our criteria on the left, and we decided how important they were. And then for the strategies, we rated each criteria on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the best in our favor, and then 1 being the worst. So as we go along and score each of our criterias, we found that the content strategy, which was to implement a way to educate senior citizens to use the internet, and then to
Add a travel component.
add a travel component. And that was our best strategy based on the scores.
Can you repeat what are the scores again?
Okay, so what we did was,
Excuse me, are we going through questions while it's going on, or are we, no, can we hold the question?
Oh, sorry.
We'll hold the questions to the end.
I don't know.
that's okay, thank you.
I mean, I don't mind asking in the middle, but.
So now we'll move on to recommendations.
So the recommendation we have for implementing the new content strategy, so far away, but R is actually the research. We want to find out how senior citizens feel about computers online. We want to see how, or the easiest way to teach them how to use, be comfortable with this new world, basically, of viewing content. The second one is implementation. So these were happening year 1, within 6-month intervals. Implementation would be actually writing the content, developing the column, and actually putting out there for publication for the seniors to see. Year 2 to year 3 would be the teaching phase, so when the seniors will actually be reading the content and learning to use computers and be more comfortable online. C is the converting phase, where we're actually slowly making it more comfortable and maybe transition them from reading the physical papers into the online papers slowly, so converting. The second part of that will be the traveler's emphasis. So we didn't start them at the same time so that we don't overkill our resource. We only have a few staff in America. We don't want them to be overwhelmed with work. So again, research. We want them to research about what the readers actually like when they go to England, what tourist areas they go to, which ones maybe would have a lot of potential for something exciting, something new. BD would be business development, maybe try to get partnerships with those companies, see if they can have like a deal, or if not a deal, maybe just pay for promotion for, if we can promote them on our publication. I is implementation, so actually putting that traveling section on the publication, maybe top 5 things to do in England in this specific city and whatnot. And U would be the actual users going to England and going to those areas.
So based on our recommendation on our content strategy, we have analyzed a bad situation, a good progress, and a best out of all. So let's assume that out of the number of clickers, 10% of them will click on our ads, generating about 100,000 of ads clicked. And we would generate about 30,000 revenue on a monthly basis, as well as the regular ads as well, $81,600. Now all these are based on our bad situation, our good situation, and our best situation. What we recommend was the good situation, mostly because we are based on conservatism, which will have a grand total of $239,100.
The headline. You might have noticed the question mark here earlier. We saved it as a surprise for the end. What we mean by the headliner is we found that we don't, Union Jack does not necessarily have to just have one strategy to go forward with a feature. Combining the elements of the acquisition, the new contents, and the courseware contest might lead to an even more interesting result. First would be the acquisition, because we want the readership to be there, as well as for advertising revenue in the Canadian market to appear. The next one would be the new content. So once we're more settled, once we have a solid or a readership base basically in Canada, we want those new contents to appear to keep things more interesting, and also to gain more revenue from advertising possibilities. Lastly would be the Foursquare. We save this for last because this might need a lot of development on coding or software, just to make sure that the application runs perfectly. And also, so that we know that there's already an established readership amount, and that there would be people who would be willing to participate in the contest.
So just to conclude what we've said today, we want to approach with a conservative look on our financials, and our best recommendation so far is just a new content strategy. But if we want to be a bit more ambitious and have something a little more innovative, then we can go and implement all the 3 strategies that we suggested today.
And we thank you for your time and listening to our presentation, and we open the floor to any questions, if any.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I mean, come on.
It's a great class tonight. I will ask you, we
You're
didn't
always
do
good.
this.
Who goes first?
Well, I guess I go first since I asked in the middle of this.
Okay.
And then Q&A.
I apologize for that. But can you repeat those scores? What do they represent again? That
So
right
this graph,
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, so just to clarify, we have 3 different strategies. We have an acquisition strategy, a content strategy, and a social media strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, and so each of those numbers corresponds to a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the best. So for example, in readership, we said that the acquisition strategy got a rating of 2.5 out of 5.
From what? Rating from what?
1 to 5.
I know, but where do you get that rating from?
It's a way of us calculating a score based on how we feel the effectiveness of that
Okay.
strategy.
Okay. So it's your own internal.
Our opinion says.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick question while we're on this.
Yes.
So if I were just to look at the scoring for content and social media on, say, the criteria of time, why do you think that content will take about half the amount of time for social media?
I mean, social media is half of the content.
No, because it was
Time to
half the value, so therefore 3 is better than 1.5.
Oh, no. With, on the rating scale, good, or the higher the number, it means in favor of us, and the lower number not in favor of us.
Okay.
I
So the
think
question is,
Yep.
why is social media on the time scale
Yep.
going to take more time or lower score than the content score?
Oh, okay.
This is because we want to approach social media with a solid strategy. A lot of companies jump into social media not really knowing what to do, or jumping in without actually having a plan. This is very wrong, because number one, once you have your readership base there, and you start a wrong social media strategy, it can also annoy them, which will lead to lower readers. And number two, it can also detract from what you're concentrating on, which is the content. If you just go ahead with the social media strategy, maybe you launch a Twitter account, a Facebook account, have your information there, people will go there, and there might not be a specific purpose for this. So what we want to do is take a longer time for social media, make sure we have everything in plan, make sure we have the right strategies, make sure we have the right use for it, and then implement it, rather than doing an implementation first and then regretting it after.
Yeah, I want to continue with that, actually. Okay? Because I'm going to ask you, you're telling me that developing the social media is going to take longer than training seniors to use the computer.
Oh, so the content though is for both the seniors and the traveling aspect as well.
Fine, the seniors are still in there. And you're going to train seniors. Have you ever trained a senior to use a computer?
I have actually. I've worked at a Richmond Public Library as a computer volunteer before to teach senior citizens.
Yeah.
And contrary to what people believe, seniors are actually very quick to learn. I mean, there's different ways to teach them. One tactic that I used was actually to write down specific steps. So at first it might be just
Then they
looking
lose a
at
piece
paper.
of paper.
Yeah, losing it. But we can also publish that information regularly, or they can ask questions.
Yeah, I challenge that.
Okay.
No, I actually agree that I think that it's a really good idea to research before you jump into social media, because it's so easy to do wrong, and then you just waste a lot of time. But I actually want to talk about your acquisition strategy really quickly. Could you kind of re-summarize what you want to do for this? Because I'm at a loss of why you want to do this first for your more ambitious strategy.
Currently, they're the only physical newspaper of British news and media in Canada. There are no other companies who are publishing newspapers that are related to British news. So acquiring their company would provide us with a way to penetrate the market, the Canadian market, and have an established viewership already.
Which company are you acquiring?
Canadian,
The British Canadian.
British Canadian.
British Canadian.
However, in the case you are being explained that, number one, the owners are not very concerned about them because they think that the content they are distributing is lower value. Number two, that they already have easy penetration anyway. So it seems to me that the focus should be more how you either grow that content or focus on the online side where they have their very stiff competition from the Huffington Post, rather than removing a competitor that's irrelevant anyways from the market. Doesn't seem to be a good way. So if you really want to spend resources to do sort of acquisition, merge the operations, etc., when you have other big issues to really deal with.
And the other aspect of it, along that same line, you just said resources, you didn't do, where's the financial analysis to show that pays off? I mean, it's going to cost you money to do that.
Yeah, I have a question on the cost too.
Show the financials for a second here. So that does not include the acquisition.
That does not include acquisition.
So you didn't do financials on the acquisition.
No.
These financials represent our recommendation.
On the content strategy.
Yeah, but you know what? You recommended both.
Yeah. Well, the headliner muddied the water because up to that there you are saying content, and then with the question mark, the surprise, you say, oh, now we'll do everything. And I think that's where you are falling down with your strategy.
Yeah.
The strategy is about what you don't want to do as much as what you want to do. And by saying, oh, we want to do everything,
Yeah.
you basically dilute your strategy completely, I think.
Well, then you haven't got the financials to support it.
Could you jump to the headliner, please? Okay. So did you already ask why not do new content first? Or?
Yeah, kind of. I was just, if you're going to pick new content as your primary strategy, and if this was your more ambitious one, I'm just surprised that you didn't do new content first.
Also, in light of what Stefan said, relative to the fact the acquisition of something that is almost irrelevant, and you didn't do financials on it. So you're saying the first thing you're going to do is the acquisition, and you got no financials on it, and then you're going to go do new content, and then you're going to do Foursquare. Well, starting in year 3, 4, 5, and new content, and then so it isn't. Then Foursquare is going to finish year 8.
So you recommended new content as your first strategy, right? Now, in the headliner, acquisition is first. So can you clarify that? Which one comes first? Is it new content comes first, or is it acquisition that comes first since you recommended new content?
For the headliner, we wanted to go with the acquisition first, just so we can get that readership prior to what Stefan has said, of course. That was our idea, is to get the number of readers first. This way, once we have the amount of readers, there's people to read the content. So we don't just put the content there without having the presence of Canada first. And then after we have the content, people are more familiar with the brand, then we launch the social media aspect of Foursquare.
Now, just tagging on to this again. Online stuff on social media, they come and go. MySpace, already gone. How about your plan is depending on Foursquare being the cream on the cake, right? So, what if Foursquare doesn't go through? What is your contingency plan?
And it doesn't start till year 6.
Yeah, so that's why I'm a little bit concerned. As an owner, I'm really concerned. If I'm going to go on the strategy, I need to know what if Foursquare goes down.
Yeah.
What's my contingency plan?
Just to clarify as well, Foursquare isn't actually the social media aspect. Foursquare is an application for Twitter. And so you're building on the success that Twitter has. Now, addressing the fact that we're starting at year 6, this is why it's a headliner. It's a second option, almost. It's what we recommend the most. It's just an innovative recommendation.
All right, so I'm a
Whoa! Headliner is a second option?
Yes.
Yes.
What headliner to me means that's the first thing you see, boom.
Headliner
conclusion.
decides.
Go to your conclusion.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm a fairly conservative guy, and I'm just gonna focus right now on your primary recommendation, which is the new content strategy.
Yeah.
So can you please go back to your financials?
Yes.
There you go.
This is based off of, I believe, 1,000,000 viewers or visitors, if you're thinking 10% equals to 100,000. So right now we're getting, I believe, 350,000 viewers. So will 250?
200.
All right. So essentially, you want to increase that by 4 times.
Essentially, yes.
And-
We're assuming that, let's say, one person or a visitor would click on an ad maybe 4 times a month.
Do you have any projections of when we will hit the 1,000,000 mark from 250? Or at least, what would you say is an adequate timeline? Are we going to get this in a year, 2 years, 3 years?
I would say that like getting 1 million users within maybe about 1 year or maybe 2 years. Mostly because, like, as we noticed that we have about 250,000 users already, and because with our implementation, we feel that with our good strategy, we feel that we will be able to hit that 1 million mark.
Okay. So Stephanie says 2 years. Gerald, what would you say?
I would agree with what you said.
Actually,
Stand back.
Okay, so,
Okay, the question I have is, what are you gonna do to get to from 250 to 1 million?
yeah, yes.
Train seniors. Heard.
Yes.
Now,
It's actually, for the strategies, the content, so there's also a travel side to it. So we want to generate advertising revenue from shops and locations in England, and also so to promote what they have to offer to the Canadian residents here. Part of the strategy is actually to have coupons on the actual paper publication for each specific shop or entertainment area, where they can then cut that coupon, go to their for their exclusive discount. This way, the shop is also able to track the effectiveness of the promotions, if it's working, and see if they want to continue with working with us or if they want to leave.
Okay, but that's the paper, physical paper. Here, this is online.
No, this is both
is-
online and on this
Okay, I'm
paper.
confused by the clicks. What do you mean by clicks?
Clicks would be
Business.
online.
Right?
Online clicks.
Then that's online.
The
Revenue or revenue.
so
That
your,
really
your financial is basically talking about online financial.
my financials are basically on the top would be total online revenue.
Oh, and you have
total.
total paper revenue.
And then I have total paper revenue.
Yeah, but the questions we're asking about relates to the percentage of clickers at 10%, is 10% of the million, you get 100,000, that's online, it's 4 times where you are. My question is, how are you going to get the online to go from 250 to 1 million in 2 years?
In 2 years, we already have 300,000 physical newspaper readers. So we calculated our conversion rate from those 300,000 to into online. Eventually, would become 1 million out of 2 years.
In 2 years? Well, go please. Okay,
I'm done.
I'm done.
Comments?
Yeah, actually, no comments. You guys go first. Just a few minutes of comments. Not too much. One each. One comment each.
Okay, one thing that I liked in your presentation, that was good, and we are hammering at you, but I like to say what I like, is one of the first slides where you said, this is what we are trying to define. The business model, one of the very, very first slides. This is what we need to look at. Integrating, expanding our reach, integrating the online activities and the business model. And I thought that was a great start. And then I lost track. I think if you had stuck to how do we address expanding our audience, how do we address the business model itself, the revenue, because here we seem to have brick and mortar stuff. Here, different initiatives, some that are very tactical, like the social media contest, and some that are much more strategic, like making acquisition. I think if you had stuck to those elements that you had initially laid out, such as how do you already define the business model, and then from there define the strategy and explore the tactics, it will be stronger.
I never like it when somebody comes up with a bunch of alternatives and then recommends them all. That does not make sense. The other thing is, it either means you didn't do enough alternative searches, or you just wishy-washy didn't, and actually it got confusing. It really did, because I'm confused as to what you're really recommending. It's like, do this or do that, and it's like, no, I want your recommendation. The other thing is your recommendation needs to be based on some solid pieces of information or facts, if you like. You can pull a little bit out of thin air, but boy, it's gotta be pretty solid with thin air. And I gotta tell you honestly, going from 250,000 to $1 million in 2 years ain't gonna happen. That's my comment.
Alright, I got 3 really quick points. So, diluting the strategy probably wasn't the best idea, especially with the more ambitious one. What you could have done was probably go with a long-term strategy after we do this main one. You can consider doing this in 5 years and, you know, pick like another one. But I thought you guys did really well, despite us really hammering you with very difficult questions. Coming to consensus with the 2 years was great. If you had disagreed with that, I wouldn't have been too happy. 10%, 22.5, and 35% are very unrealistic. Usually for actually clicking ads, 10% would be beyond ideal. But, you know, you guys probably aren't very into web design, so I don't know.
I like the question mark. At first I thought it was a mistake, and you guys had error, and then I started questioning myself, and then I started really expecting it. Tagging onto them, that my only concern was making all your recommendations into one. I understand that you're trying to make a suite of it and have a long-term strategy, have everything together, and make it this is your life plan basically. That was good. That was a good move in my opinion. Maybe once you see it, but the bad one was what they said. So I like that part.
2 points on the presentation, basically. If you go back to the chart where your 5 decision criteria, earlier. Now, are you trying to tell me readership is the primary concern right now, right?
Yes.
Now, I wonder why I should be aware of using the pyramid. That gives me the first idea is the cost is the most important part. Okay? So this is presentation techniques. Okay? Is really confusing because a lot of people will focus on what's the foundation. So that tells me the first line of item is cost. You could use more animated presentation skills in here, it would be better, one after another. 2 more slides after. No, one more. When you try to impact and explain all that, try not to use a lot of abbreviation because it's really hard to focus on what we're talking about. I see a lot of letters. Okay. I couldn't understand at all what you mean. I was like, I hate to say I'm really falling asleep like that. But other than that, the presentation flow is okay. You need to be more concrete and detailed, laying out your strategy. Because I'm hearing terms and by not seeing detailed actions that would lead me believing that you guys could deliver the job. Then why would I choose you? Right. That's all.
On the topic of the timeline, just very quickly, the way you did it like this, you have a very sequential timeline, whereas a lot of these can be run in parallel. So when you have it all in one line, yeah, you can save time by doing some activities like teaching during the implementation phase. See whatever this stands for.
So thank you very much. You can stay here, you can go wherever you like, you can do whatever you like. But thank you. Please, thank you. Please share the statement and tell the next speaker.